Did you find it? Okay. It should be on page 13.
So reading the introduction.
Yep. Try to speak pretty loudly too, because I'm trying to pick it up on this too.
Okay. Hello, my name is Ava Shiger. Thank you so much for agreeing to participate in an interview for Community Voices. I'm so excited to talk to you. As I think you know, I'm recording this interview so that I can focus on listening to you rather than taking notes. The recording will not be used by anyone but me or shared with the public without your consent. How would you like to be referred to during this interview? Martina. Before we begin, I'd like to give you a little overview of what is going to happen. As you may know, we have interviewed many people in Oberlin to develop content for the Community Voices section of Environmental Dashboard. Our goal is to learn how members of the Oberlin community are building a more sustainable, just, and resilient community. I'm particularly interested in the Green School topic. I'm hoping that this will be more of a conversation than a formal interview. Does that sound okay? Wonderful. I'm going to ask you, Martina, about 2 or 3 questions. Okay, so being from Chile, what about Oberlin and the community college drew you to this college? And after being here for a few months, what stands out to you about the community of Oberlin?
I think one of the main reasons that attracted me to Oberlin was knowing a little bit about all the environmental commitments that the college had made and this goal of achieving carbon neutrality, all the changes that they were doing in the buildings regarding the energy. I think that gave me like very good vibes about the work that has been done here at Oberlin. And coming here, I think that I have confirmed that, and it's maybe like even more than I thought, considering that all the connections that happen between the college and Oberlin town. I feel that they work very close, and the town also has a lot of organizations that are involved in making Oberlin more sustainable. So I feel like really proud because of all of this collaboration that happens between the two.
What do you hope to accomplish with an environmental science major? I noticed that in the sheet. What do you think you can make, or how do you think you can make an impact on the Oberlin community with that major?
Yeah, one of the main reasons that why I'm interested in this major is because I grew up in an agricultural community, and over the time I could see like how different environmental issues are like already having an effect and my community in how yeah, like in the way our economy works, like we have droughts and problems with water, and how that all these different sources are just like disappearing over time. So I feel that studying environmental studies, it's a very like personal way for me to address those kind of problems or work close to the community and like be a resource to support them. So that's what I hope to accomplish in general and to move in a more personal scale. Particularly in Oberlin, I would like to start just like taking the very first steps on this. I'm still like not sure about what's like the specific area of environmental studies that I want to address. But yeah, if I have the chance to get involved in a community organization that are working with in the agriculture, like farms, and yeah, the agricultural side of Oberlin, I think that probably work a very good person. So that's I'm hoping that we're getting over.
So, fast.
Um, I mean, which one? I mean, I think you have time a little bit.
Okay. So at the sheet that I was looking at, you mentioned, that you liked Holland campus and the tolerations were close. Do you think the college can have an impact on the community and vice versa? What kind of impacts do you think can occur if the community and the college work together?
Well, I think that, I think Kelly also in the beginning, I think that this is already happening like this collaboration and connection between the college and the community. And I think that the college has a lot of resources that they can provide to the community in terms of fields of study, like outboard like, like providing like knowledge and creating knowledge and this research that can be implemented in the community and can just like serve directly the community, and also between the organizations. I feel that there are a lot of community members that are part of the college and work in both circles. So the problems that we see in the community are in some ways also addressed by the college. Like people are involved in both those spaces. I'm sure
I think we better stop there.
For the interview.
And then is Henry to go next?
Do you have your phone ready to record?
Hello, my name is Henry. Thank you so much for agreeing to participate in the interview for courses. I'm excited to talk with you. As I think you know, I'm recording this interview so that I can focus on listening to you rather than taking notes. The recording will not be used for anyone but me or shared with the public without your consent. How would you like to be referred to during this interview?
Kate.
Before we begin, I would like to give you a little overview about what is going to happen. As you may know, we have interviewed many people in Oberlin to develop content for the Community Voices section of the Environmental Dashboard. Our goal is to learn how members of the Oberlin community are building a more sustainable, just, and resilient. I'm particularly interested in my question too. I am hoping that this can be more of a conversation than a formal interview. Does that sound okay?
Yes.
Wonderful. I'm going to ask you 3 questions. My first question, so you mentioned that you were a member of the women's basketball team. The team was historically successful this year. One thing that stood out to me throughout watching the year was that the team's sense of community was like excellent. How do you think being a part of a community like this can translate into other ways of being successful in achieving goals on this campus as a larger community, especially the sustainability goals?
I think our team created a great sense of community this year, and we had a very close relationship, more than on any other team that I've ever played on. I think that family aspect and that the I've got your back attitude really pulls us together. And I think knowing that we're all joining in together, going against we all have the same goal. And so I think that can translate to the community in the sense that we all have the same goal of striving for better in the environment and striving for change. And so using that same attitude of family and togetherness and community, knowing that we're all working towards the same thing could really help.
Cool. And then you also mentioned that you wanted to do research as a part of your studies. What research do you plan on doing on campus?
I think that, I'm mostly interested in environmental policy. So in terms of research that would have to do with that would be people's attitude towards environmental change and
kind of what sparks those different attitudes and what their personal environment can do to affect those attitudes. So I think that would be a different answer.
And then my last question is, you say you're from Crawfordsville, Indiana, which I know is like kind of a smaller community. What are the similarities and differences between your community in Crawfordsville and the community here at Oberlin?
It's really interesting because Crawfordsville is a college town, similarly to Oberlin. But the way that the college interacts with the town here at Oberlin is immensely different than the way that the college interacts with, like how Wabash interacts with Crawfordsville. And so that's definitely something that I'm excited for and I'm happy for, that the college is definitely a lot more involved and a lot more willing to be one community than a little bit of a more separated community that I see back home. Mhm. And then, Martina wants to go next.
Hi, my name is Martina. Thank you so much for agreeing to participate in an interview for Community Voices. I'm really excited to talk to you. Before we begin, I would like to give you a little overview about what's going to happen. As you may know, we have interviewed many people in Oberlin to develop content for Community Voices section of the Environmental Board. And our goal is to learn how members of the Oberlin community are building a more sustainable, just and resilient community. And I'm particularly interested in learning more about your experience at Oberlin and what are some of your goals right now. And I'm hoping that this can be more of a conversation rather than a formal interview. Is that okay? Okay, great. Well, first of all, I would like to ask you for your consent to record this interview. This recording is not gonna be shared with anyone without your consent. It's just for me to focus more on listening rather than on taking notes. Okay, yeah. Great. And also, I wanted to ask you how you would like to be recorded during this interview.
Ava is fine.
Perfect. Okay, so just to go ahead and start, my first question is what impact would you like to have in the Oberlin community during this 4 years of college?
I think one impact that I want to have is helping reduce like how much with my carbon footprint. I wanted to live in Pond, which is the environmental one. And one of the goals that you can bring your car here, and so like, that was one of the main reasons I want to live here, because I know I'm very dependent on my car, and like my car runs on gas and like polluting the air. So I try not to drive my car to help with that. But I think I just want to help with like carbon emissions and hopefully just reducing my own carbon footprint and also like people around with their carbon footprint. I think that's one of the main reasons why global warming is happening and all that.
Yeah, great. I think an important part of the work that we do is starting for those first personal steps.
One person can change water, right?
Yeah, and well, following up to that, how do you think that also your degree in chemistry biodiversity, because like you mentioned, your bias. How do you think that your major could eventually help you your personal goals or anything that you want to have here?
Yeah, so biochemistry, like that major, is probably gonna require a lot of research, and hopefully I can incorporate research to help people interact with the environment and like what negative impacts people have. So hopefully through the research of like biochemistry and obviously biology includes a lot of plants and how plants interact with the environment, how people interact with the environment. Hopefully I can figure out something, not like a solution, but hopefully through research I can help like try to solve these problems, especially using like I like plants, like I like doing research on plants and how they impact our environment, how we impact plants, and how like obviously like going back to the carbon thing, it's not helpful. But yeah, so hopefully through research, I can help.
Makes a lot of sense. Like, how the research and building more knowledge, incorporate that into your personal life.
Yeah.
And then I have just one more question. It's how do you feel that the place where you grew up has shaped your current interests, and also how after coming to Oberlin, this has changed, if it has changed.
Yeah, so I grew up in a smaller town right outside of Madison, Wisconsin, and it's more conservative than liberal, and I feel like my personal point of view is liberal. And so there's not a lot of talk about how humans are impacting the environment. And after coming here, I realized that we really are. Like I've never really had the environment. I've never really taken an environmental society class, about like how we can change the environment. But after coming here, I realized that it is a big thing and that we do need to change the way that we act. And so I think coming from a more conservative town to a more liberal town has changed my views of how I like see the world almost, and how I see how the way that I act and like what changes I can make. So I'm very thankful that I came to this college. And I just love the fact that the community and the college are working together to change the way that they're doing things to help the environment.
Wonderful. Thanks so much for your time.
And then lastly, I can just go. Hello, my name is Clayton. Thank you so much for agreeing to participate in an interview for Community Voices. I'm excited to talk to you. As I think you know, I am recording this interview so that I can focus on listening to you rather than taking notes. The recording will not be used by anyone but me or shared with the public without your consent. How would you like to be referred to during this interview?
Henry,
Before we begin, I would like to give you a little overview about what is going to happen. As you may know, we have interviewed many people in Oberlin to develop content for this Community Voices section of Environmental Dashboard. Our goal is to learn how members of the Oberlin community are building a more sustainable, just, and resilient community. I'm particularly interested in your experience at Oberlin. I am hoping that this can be more of a conversation than a formal interview. Does that sound okay?
yes,
Wonderful. I'm going to ask you 3 questions. My first question is, you listed that your favorite place in Oberlin is the Arb. Do you think being an environmental studies major has an effect on you?
yeah, like directly, I'm in environmental biology this semester, and one of our big assignments is to go to the Arbor and follow like a specific route that you made at the beginning of the semester. And so I've been like 5 or 6 times already trying to come to like really appreciate the nature and just getting to know like a space really well and seeing how it changes as we've gone from winter now into kind of spring. So yeah, I think that being in the MBS center is definitely it's the reason that I'm going to
All right. What do you hope to accomplish with an environmental studies major? How can the knowledge you gain from your coursework make an impact on the community of Oberlin?
I think part of my decision to become an EMDS major was just to gain knowledge on everything that's going on in the world and how humans affect the world, because I think that it's probably the most pressing issue in terms of humans and how they interact with this place that we live on. And I think that I want to learn what I do as an individual to better myself in terms of interacting with the environment and also on a bigger scale what communities can do.
Awesome. And then my last question is, being from New York, how has Oberlin shifted your concept of food?
So I mean, New York City is such a huge community that I kind of just see myself as an individual living in my million. Obviously I have my communities, but it's more of an individual thing. But then here it's a much smaller close community. So I feel like every decision that I make affects other people more than it does back home. So just like being able to think about that when I so,
Awesome, thank you so much.
Well, so we don't have a lot of time for debrief. Let's just go around quickly and just say like one thing that you saw about someone else that you liked. Or something along those lines.
So what worked well in the interviews you saw, I guess is the question. We're just going to go around and talk about things that you saw that worked well.
Martina, I thought you were really good as as the interviewer, like kind of like using the script, but like also making it your own and like adding in little extra bits here and there made it a lot more personable.
I was gonna say something along the same lines, like I like to make eye contact and made me feel like more comfortable because I hate being interviewed. But I felt like comfortable and I don't know, I felt like you like wanted to be there too. So I think like the eye contact is good.
Can I say something?
Yeah.
to improve on?
Yes, absolutely. You can say something about your,
Just like eye contact and projecting her voices and just making it a conversation rather than an interview. But obviously that's the first one, so.
Martina?
Yeah, I really like how all of those like, yeah, like the way, the questions that we asked, I think it was very easy and connected to our goals and mental health things, and I like how, you know, in some way, yeah, I feel like all of the conversations were very natural. Same as at the beginning, I started with that a little bit, just like, I don't know, like, getting the structure. I think it's not easy being the first time like interviewing, yeah, like going through all that versus that information. I think that we did all of it.
Do you have anything, John?
You go first.
I was gonna say I went really, really well. I think also touching on body language and just eye contact, and then just getting used to the overall format and the script in the beginning is probably really important for the actual interview. Other than that, the questions are really good and everyone seems pretty comfortable today. So that's it.
Yeah, I'd say in a general sense, the comments you made are great. And I think in a general sense, just making sure you're really prepared so that when an interview starts, you're comfortable and relaxed. And I think everyone keyed in that that Martina was probably the most relaxed about it and had clearly like read the script ahead of time so that she could like put it in her own words and have eye contact. And that's already been brought up. I think setting your interviewee at ease is really important. And the more sort of nervous you are, the harder it is for them to be at ease. So that eye contact business is really important. Just making sure you're not distracted by having a lot of documents open or something like that, so you can really focus on the other person. One thing that I also saw Martina do, which I didn't see other people do, is follow up. And that is, again, a lot about preparation. If you really know what you're going to come into it with, the questions, what you're going to do, it makes it easier for you to really listen to the other person. And when you're listening, to ask little follow-up questions. Just as an example of that, I felt like Peyton landed on this. Let's see, what was it? You were talking about the difference between your community of Wabash and stuff, and you weren't quite talking about Oberlin yet. And a great follow-up to that would have been something that sort of like elicited something that was more specifically about the Oberlin community, because she sort of like laid it out for you to ask that question. But again, you know, you're focused on your questions and stuff. And so the more you can really know what you're going to say so that you're listening and you can then follow up and insert, to try to get what you want out of it. Because you set them up, but, it was like, the timing and just everything else. Do make sure that you think hard about how your questions are focused on this community, and this community being the larger Oberlin community. So you're really trying to get answers that are going to be about not Oberlin College per se, but Oberlin student involvement in the larger community to try to get content that relates to that. But yeah, you guys did a good job for a first interview. Hopefully you picked up on a lot of stuff that gets you all set for your next interview. I felt like in every one of these, there's some really good quotables. For some of you, some great quotables. I mean, I was just listening to you, Henry. There's lots of stuff in there that could be on Community Voices slides. As you were talking, it's like, there's a lot of content there.
Good
Yeah.
job, and thank you for attending.
All right. You guys have a great rest of your Saturday. Stay dry.
Yeah, it kind of stopped.
What's that?
It kind of stopped. A little
I don't know. I'm hearing it on the roof. You got a very auditory experience with rain in this room.
bit. It's kind of relaxing when playing the drum.
Yeah, no, it is. It's the metal roof, so you
Like
get the
doing homework in
amplification.
here,
Yeah, right.
Allison,
This is a great space. You guys should take advantage of it. If we have meetings in here, we'll kick you out, but most of the time, this room is like primo study space.
Or downstairs when the water's flowing.
Yeah, you know that water runs on that solar panel, right? So you're listening to the sound of the sun.
Oh, no, I didn't.
Yeah, the more intense the sun. If you're down there and the cloud goes over the sun, you'll hear the whole thing go down and then pick up again. It's very cool. All right, you guys have to get out so the next group can get in.
Thank you.
See you. Yeah. Yeah. Henry, be on time for your interviews. Come on in.
Thank you.
Hello.
Hey there, how are you? Good. All right. Yeah, is this one of the groups where we're missing someone? No, it's not. Okay. Okay, good that you texted her. So it would be great if you guys got yourselves ready as quickly as possible. Be ready with the sort of intro statement. Have that out in front of you. Obviously, your questions out in front of you. Have your phone ready, so that when we get to you, we'll be ready to roll. Okay, Harriet, why don't you just go, and we'll.
Okay. So overview, we're gonna interview each other in the assigned pairs, and then we're gonna watch them all together. And at the very end, we'll have time for feedback for you to make comments about other groups that have gone. And as John said, just pull out the interview script about like getting consent for recordings and introducing yourself. And you should have time to ask around 2 to 3 questions, about 5 minutes each. And the goal is to get used to the interview process, get to know your peers, and prepare to actually interview the member of the community in the future. And we'll go in alphabetical order when Callie gets here, everyone gets here. Yeah, and then John's going to be recording on Zoom as a backup.
Yeah, so in case this doesn't work, we got you backed up a little bit. But we do want you guys to practice that process. And just to reiterate something that Harriet said, the point is both for you to practice interview, but also for you guys to watch each other interview, so you can give each other feedback on what worked well in the interview process.
You know where the introduction part is in the syllabus?
This?
Yes.
Yes.
So you want to go to the syllabus and then pass the project. Oh yeah, you're not ready. Just scroll down to page 13.
I think these guys are actually prepped, ready to roll. And I think we probably should go ahead and start. We are. Yeah.
He's on our way.
Okay.
So I guess we can do the interviews. Our interviews first.
Yeah, that's probably the way to do it. That's good. Okay.
Yes. So we do the introduction and then
Right, exactly. And then ask your question.
we do it word for word. the introduction.
If you had practiced it ahead of time, you could sort of be a little extemporaneous on it. But if you have not practiced it, I suggest you read it.
Okay. Hello, my name is Colin Leonard. Thank you so much for agreeing to participate in an interview for Community Voices. I'm excited to talk with you. As I think you know, I'm recording this interview so that I can focus on listening to you rather than taking notes. The recording will not be used by anyone but me or shared with the public without your consent. How would you like to be referred to during this interview?
Really.
Brilliant, great. And before we begin, I would like to give you a little overview about what is going to happen. As you may know, we have interviewed many people in Oberlin to develop content for the Community Voices section of the Environmental Dashboard. Our goal is to learn how members of Oberlin are building a more sustainable, just, and resilient community. I'm particularly interested in the topic of the arts. I am hoping that this can be more of a conversation than a formal interview. Does that sound okay?
Mhm.
Wonderful. I'm going to ask you 2 to 3 questions. My first one is, what is something about Oberlin that makes you happy?
Something that makes me happy about Oberlin is the tight-knit community and the opportunities that sort of enable students to engage in relatively whatever they want and whenever they want. And I think that makes it really easy to get involved and really easy to just make connections small and big.
Now, talking about connections, do you see photography and design playing a role in making connections in the Oberlin community and sort of leading those connections to building a more sustainable future in the Oberlin community?
Yeah, so as someone who definitely partakes in like arts and photography being one of them, and also a lot of just 2D art, I feel like everything's interconnected and being able to self-identify with things that are around me in the environment and things that are, you know, more based around who I am can help me sort of track the way that I am in my own life and how that is so important to the rest of the community that I'm involved in at any given
Cool. Okay, so now I thought this was sort of cool because I'm also vegetarian and I read on your thing that you are vegan. How do you think eating less meat or no meat, because sometimes it's sort of hard to eat no meat for some people, can affect a small community?
Oh, that's a really good question. So I definitely think that I very much identify, I've always identified as vegetarian and I became vegan a little later on in life. So having meat around is never something for me. So I think it's definitely one of those things, it's a careful conversation I have to have with people because I've come from a very biased like group, meaning my family who doesn't really ever eat meat and doesn't ever have sort of like animal products. And I think it's so important to be able to know why you're doing it. And for me, I do it for the environment and for animals. And I think that's all intertwined. I think that there's so many things about like the factory farming, production of food and meat industries and how it plays a role into sustainability and how much waste is going into you know, 1 pound of meat versus like a pound of like fresh produce. So I think it's like really important to know that locally that can be down to like choosing farmers market fresh produce versus store-bought meats, and also engaging with people and learning more about people who, you know, don't have that choice because a lot of it does have to do with accessibility and financial status because not everyone can afford to be plant-based, and that's something that once you accept, you can further your own understanding of what you're doing.
Can we fill it up for 5 minutes? Or
No, if you have follow-ups, that's great. If you don't, we can switch.
one little thing. So we talked about eating less meat in a small community. How do you think the impact of eating less meat in a small community can impact sort of a larger community of like state of Ohio or US?
That's a really good question. I honestly don't know if I have all of the information
It's
to
okay.
support an answer, but I think it's extremely important to understand the impact of small things to large. So I think given what I answered before, it's just a chain reaction and you know, little things do create bigger things in my opinion. And finding a balance that works for people and just educating people, I think is the biggest thing we can do. And so if you have a larger community like Ohio or the country, or the world, then being able to bring your own ideas into that and then sort of directing that into like bigger corporations and choosing not to be a consumer of those production facilities. Um, you know, in my opinion, would probably affect the environment and could also, you know, have a lot of consequences in other ways, because that is a huge part of how a lot of people in the country work, that have work and are able to function.
Okay.
Great.
Well, thank you. That's about all the time we have today. Thank you so much for your answers.
That's great. Why don't we just swap you two while Kelly gets herself settled and then she'll figure out what we're up to.
Hello, my name is Elaine Feinberg. Thank you so much for agreeing to participate in an interview for Community Voices. I'm excited to talk to you. As I think you know, I'm recording this interview so that I can focus on listening to you rather than taking notes. The recorder will not be used by anyone but you or shared with the public without your consent. How would you like to be referred to during this interview?
Colin is good.
Great, Colin. Before we begin, I would like to give you a little overview about what is going to happen. As you may know, we have interviewed many people in Oberlin to develop content for the Community Voices section of Environmental Dashboard. Our goal is to learn how members of Oberlin community are building a more sustainable, just, and resilient community. I'm particularly interested in the arts. I'm hoping that this can be more of a conversation than a formal interview. Does that sound okay?
Yeah.
Wonderful. I'm going to ask you roughly 3 to 4 questions, but depends on how your answers go.
Mhm.
Right. So what particularly engages you in the Oberlin community?
At the moment, I feel like it's a lot of focus in the college and conservatory, but sort of to get away from that, I enjoy experiencing the nature that Oberlin has to offer, whether the art or the bike trails or just tapping and doing some things in there and playing music outside, since I'm a musician, is a great way to sort of share a sense of community in Oberlin.
Oh, that's great. And I guess that actually perfectly ties into my next question. So how does your involvement with music sort of guide your mindset of the smaller community at Oberlin?
Wait, can you repeat that?
Yeah, sure. So how does your involvement with music guide your mindset to the smaller community of Oberlin? You can interpret that however you.
Yeah, so for me, music, what I'm trying to do, I mean, some people just play music to play music, but I play music to sort of make a sense of community, because I feel like people can be very distant from each other, and the more community we have, because music shares a sense of feeling and emotion that's, it doesn't matter what you believe in, it's human. So that makes a strong sense of community, which can make people come together, even if they have conflicts of interest. And so that can help with sort of environmental issues or racial justice, and society issues. So hopefully making community make real point.
Great, great. You also mentioned like going on walks and going on bike rides. So how does this sort of affect your lifestyle in Oberlin and possibly maybe some subconscious response to wanting to be more sustainable, or how do you sort of do it?
Yeah, well, I feel like nature sort of is a reflection of society, and now we can see nature sort of getting polluted, and I think that's a reflection of society as well. And I feel like we just want where we're living to be clean, right? You want your house to be clean, you don't want it to be dirty. We're living on the earth, we want that to be clean. Yeah.
Absolutely.
My last question is, who or what voices are the most influential in your decisions in the community that surrounds you?
Does it have to be voices in Oberlin or,
Oh, you can explain it actually.
okay? It's a hard question, sorry.
No problem.
I just say, anyone who's trying to, make a change, through the arts and through creativity or, through advertising or anything is really inspiring to me. Like our teacher, John, or some, musicians who I'm inspired by, Sonny Rollins, who works with, Oberlin. You know, he made, albums dedicated to environmental justice and racial justice. And yeah, I'm inspired by that.
Thank you. Thank you for your thoughts.
Thank you.
Good
Do
job.
you like to be referred to as your last name?
I'm fine with John, whatever you guys are. Once people know me, if people don't know me, you know, then it's one thing, but you guys are in my class, so John's just fine. Whatever you're comfortable with is fine.
Cool.
Why don't we, since Callie's still getting adjusted to being here, I'm gonna suggest that we have Ben-Hur interview you first. And I let me just say, can you pull up the script? Because I think Callie's gonna need that because she doesn't have a computer, because then you can pass that on to her. So that you can, oh, that's a good idea. You're fine with that. Yeah, that's good. So if you just get her set up, yeah, why don't we do the interview that way first?
Hello, my name is Ben-Hur, and thanks so much for agreeing to participate in an interview for Community Voices. And I'm excited to talk to you. As I think you know, I'm recording, I would like to record this interview so that I can focus on listening to you rather than taking notes. The recording will not be used by anyone but me or shared with the public without your consent.
Yes.
Thank you. How would you like to be referred to during this interview? Any titles or name or prefixes as well?
No.
Okay. Before we begin, I would like to give you a little overview about what's going to happen. As you may know, we have interviewed many people in Oberlin to develop content for the Community Voice section of Environmental Dashboard. Our goal is to learn how members of the Oberlin community are building a more sustainable, just and resilient community. I'm particularly interested in the arts. I am hoping that this can be more of a conversation than a formal interview. Does that sound okay? Thank you so much. Going to my questions. Can you share a little bit about yourself and why you chose to be in the arts project for this?
Yeah, just anything about myself or like directly?
Related to this, why you are interested in the arts and environmentalism?
Yeah, I think the arts are like a really interesting way of looking at like social issues and like political issues, because it's such a like expressive way to like get into such a topic. Like looking at like environmentalism through the arts is like a very, to me, super interesting way of like exploring it. So I'm excited to like look into the community through like the lens of arts.
Thank you. And just to add a little bit on that, how have you interacted with, or what have your attitude of the arts in Oberlin as an arts and music school and its influences, you know, about the general environmentalism or just kind of attitude of the population?
Yeah. I haven't like seen a lot of like music or anything like in the town specifically, but I know like at the college it's been a huge part of my experience here so far, even as like a not music student or art student. It's just been cool to see how much like the arts feed into my life even when I'm not studying it. And yeah, I'm excited to see more of it.
That's great. And going out of scope from yourself, I would like to ask you, what do you think is the importance of arts in building a sustainable community and helping our environment in Oberlin?
Yeah, I think, I mean, like I had said before, the arts are like a super expressive way to get into political issues, and I think it's kind of a way to make like topics like this accessible to the general public. So like, I don't know, incorporating art and music into like political advocacy and stuff like that is like a great way, I think, to spread ideas. Yeah.
That's great. My final question would be building on that with the given cultural heritage we have at Oberlin. So how do you think that intertwines with this community's commitment to environmental sustainability? Are you hopeful that the community will build on that cultural heritage?
Wait, I'm a little confused by the question, sorry.
Oh yeah, no problem. Just Oberlin is known to have, this good heritage or kind of reputation in the past, and now one of the biggest challenges we face is environmental crisis. So,
Yeah.
what is your understanding, or how you got this community's commitment towards environmental sustainability and their awareness?
I think that like the reputation that Oberlin has is being super like liberal and progressive. It like on the one hand, it's gonna help like I think it's just a factor that like kind of gives us a head start on like issues like this because we kind of know that the community is for the most part in agreement. But it's also interesting because like right outside of this community is like a vastly different like political landscape. And so I think while it's gonna help a lot, or like and it has really helped a lot to like take initiative. I think it's gonna be interesting to see how it like spreads past like the Oberlin boundaries and like the contrast between here and like right outside where it might not be as progressive.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, I'm like not prepared for this interview. I know like you know that.
Give it a shot.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a practice interview, so go ahead and read that yeah.
Right, like I have like 2 questions.
That's fine.
I
Just
have this.
do what you can do.
It's just to like wait my first
Mhm.
question. Okay. Can I read it before I start?
Yep. Well, no, you can start recording. That's fine.
Hello, my name is Kelly Goodland. Thank you so much for agreeing to participate in an interview for Community Voices. I'm excited to talk to you. As I think you know, I'm recording this interview so that I can focus on listening to you rather than taking notes. The recording will not be used by anyone but me or shared with the public without your consent. How would you like to be referred to during this interview?
Ben-Hur.
Before we begin, I would like to give you a little overview about what is going to happen. As you may know, we have interviewed many people in Oberlin to develop content for the Community Voices section of Environmental Dashboard. Our goal is to learn how members of the Oberlin community are building a more sustainable, just, and resilient community. I'm particularly interested in the arts. I'm hoping that this can be more of a conversation than a formal interview. Does that sound okay?
Yeah.
I am going to ask you 2+ questions. Does that sound good?
Yeah.
Okay. My first question is just what drives you to succeed in college and other aspects of your life, like in a general sense?
I have a commitment to myself, to my calling as an artist, to fulfill that, to my family, who support me that, and to my community, friends, and country. and just to the service of humanity, just to share and serve and heal and teach. So this is my driver.
And then like going off of that, how has that translated to your Oberlin experience so far? And also, if it applies, like issues like environmentalism and topics that would apply to this class.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think I use that in my music and project I'm involved with, and well, that's why like my attention, or like my 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 interest in environmentalism like led me to take a course in environmental studies, so that even though I'm an artist, so that I can also like try to like to have another kind of maybe a double degree in that. So I wanted to incorporate environmentalism directly with my musicianship, and in that to work with organizations, non-profits and profits to you know to use the tool of arts to inspire and connect people for this for this great feature that we have. So yeah.
Okay, and then in your little profile thing, you mentioned some things about like politics and the environment, the political environment here at Oberlin. So I was wondering, how have the politics at Oberlin affected your experience so far, and how do you think that's going to apply to like this realm of topics?
That's interesting. I am from a small country in Africa where it is not per se liberal in social aspects. However, it's extremely progressive in the fields of sustainability, the way we use energy, the way we have transformed into a more renewable resources, as well as banning all plastics and other unsustainable methods. And when I came to Oberlin, this is a much much wealthier town, but still they are slowly transitioning into more sustainable and renewable. And I noticed that Oberlin is trying to reduce, and that's what have been my experiences with. But I'm just always intrigued about how this community is, but it's wealthy enough to to enact such change. So I've noticed that one of the drivers of this is not just the care of the for the income, but the ability also to like afford those options.
Okay,
We're going to stop there just because we're running down on time, and we want to do a quick go round just to give each other a little bit of feedback.
I would say just being prepared, just like knowing your questions really well, so you don't have to like keep looking down at the computer. And then also, you guys had really good follow-up questions, like on diet, and then like, coming up with how like arts connect to the community. And just in general, like body language and eye contact. Everything out there.
So we're just going to do a go around. Yes. So some things that you noticed that worked well in your interview, other people's interviews, just things you noticed.
I noticed when people you ask them a question and they give you a little bit, but it has not completed that the follow-up questions, even though the ad hoc questions.
Right. Great.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Actually, the follow-up questions really helps like guide it through the questions so that you can just build off of it rather than thinking of really quick, profound things to say. Yeah, I feel like it went really well.
I agree about all of that. I didn't see first, but I don't know. I thought you did a really good job of like answering questions. Isn't that assignment? But I think it's gonna be interesting to see like how much we're gonna have to use like the follow-up sessions when it's gonna be people who aren't like in the class thinking about interview like procedures. Yeah.
Yeah, I thought it was overall a good first first interview. I think if we had more time, maybe even do less questions and more follow-up questions to really get into a subject. I feel like we sort of grazed the surface, but there was some really good content for 5 minutes.
Yeah, I like how you guys are all picking up on the follow-up and how important that is. And of course, to do a good follow-up means being prepared enough so that you can really listen to the person. Because you can't do a good follow-up if you're not really hearing them. So I think that drives that piece home. When you do think about follow-ups, definitely be thinking about sort of the larger goals of, we want to develop content that meets the core communication principles and is sort of focused on the larger Oberlin community. So oftentimes people will say something that sort of leads into that, but is not quite there yet. And if you just inserted that little bit of follow-up, but I will say, even just jotting down some notes, which I'm not encouraging you to do, there were some good quotes of what was said. So here's one from Callie, I guess. Incorporating the arts into political advocacy is a great way to engage with the Oberlin community. So that's a neat one. Here is one from Ben Hur. I want to incorporate environmentalism into my musicianship and use the tool of arts to inspire, connect people to address the grave challenges we face. And I got one more from Colin. Playing music outside is a great way to share community in Oberlin. So there's some great content here to be mined from even those short little interviews. So you want to be looking for stuff like that. All right, we're going to put you guys because we're a little late for our next group now. Be on time, Callie. That's really key to these things. Yes. Yes. All right, you guys take care. Have a great weekend. Some really neat stuff in your conversation, by the way. That was cool stuff.
Yeah, I like talking.
Yeah, very cool stuff.
Have a good weekend.
Yeah, you too. We're a little bit behind already, but so to get your computers out, get yourselves ready with the script and your phone to record and that sort of stuff.
And then make sure you open up the interview introduction script.
Okay, Ben Hur. Have a good weekend. All right. So
I'll start talking like I said.
yeah, sure. That sounds good.
So you're going to interview each other in the assigned pairs, and the others will just watch and observe, and so at the very end we can provide feedback. You should have time to ask around 2 or 3 questions, like 5 minutes each. And the goal is to get used to interviewing other people, to know your peers, and like watch each other, and then prepare to interview a member of the community eventually. And so also make sure you have open the introduction part that has like the consent for recording. And I guess the person will go first. We're gonna do alphabetically, so I guess Bryn.
Where is the
So you want to go to the syllabus, the 101 syllabus, and then press project, and then go to that document and go to page 13.
oh, okay.
Yeah, and then make sure you record on your phones. John's gonna record.
I gotta back up, but you won't have that next time.
So it's good. I can just go.
Yeah, you can just
Okay, cool. And then I just start reading the.
Mhm.
Okay. Alright, and then I start recording after I read that.
You can start recording.
You can start.
Hi, my name is Ben. Thank you so much for agreeing to participate in the interview for Community Voices. I'm excited to talk to you. As I think you know, I'm recording this interview so that I can focus on listening to you rather than taking notes. This recording will not be used by anyone but me or shared with the public without your consent. How would you like to be referred to during this interview?
Mr. Rogers.
Mr. Rogers, okay, perfect. Before we begin, I would like to give you a little overview about what's going to happen. As you may know, we have interviewed 9 people in Oberlin to develop content for Community Voices section of Environmental Dashboard. Our goal is to learn how members of the Oberlin community are building a more sustainable, just, and resilient community. I'm particularly interested in your perspective on Community Voices and how you are in the community. I'm hoping that this can be more of a conversation than a formal interview. Does that sound okay?
That's,
Okay, wonderful. I'm going to ask you 3 questions. And my first question is, how has playing football influenced your relationship with the Oberlin community outside of the college?
well, outside of college, it gives us like an outlook, an outreach to talk to previous members that were on the team and have them help us get more involved with the community as well as look at the world outside of just Oberlin and help us like be prepared for the next step in our life.
That's nice. Do you feel like you've bonded more than you would have if you hadn't been on the football team?
Originally, no, because when I first came here, the community is not really like big with like the football team,
Yeah,
just because of previous reps. But taking different classes and being an reaching person like I am, like being able to talk to other people, I've gotten gained more like views on what people in this community are here for and like their mission.
that's awesome. Okay, so I'm going to kind of shift gears for a second and talk about how moving from here, moving from Florida to here has affected your relationship with nature, but how you in kind of a different ecosystem and different similarities. Do you find yourself paying more attention to like nature here or enjoying it more or the new aspects of it?
In Florida, we don't really have season changes.
Mhm.
It's always like just green or dead with the tree. So in the fall to see all the other colors of the trees, like I really noticed that. I thought it was beautiful.
Mhm.
But other than that, I've always been like an outdoorsy person, like going fishing, going camping, doing this and that. So like that aspect of nature is never really like it's just normal like thing.
That's nice. Do you feel like when you go back to Florida, you're gonna miss parts about like nature there?
Some aspects like the leaves changing,
Mhm.
but like with the snow, no. I prefer heat.
Yeah. I feel like the snow with the limiting like your ability to like hunt and stuff like that. Or not hunt, sorry, it's like, yeah.
Well, I don't really have anything up here to go fishing,
Yeah.
but I would like to go fishing here, like when it starts to warm up. Definitely don't want to stand outside in the cold.
Yeah. Absolutely not. Okay, and then if I want to talk about like your friendships, because you mentioned that those are really important to you.
Mhm.
Do you feel like your friendships that you've made here have made you like think how you think about like your role in like the community and the world and kind of like the direction of like your future in terms of like your job and also just like how you're gonna be a part of the world?
My friendships have helped me definitely like, experience this place better.
Mhm.
Being here, being far from home, it was really hard at first, but making those friendships in the classroom with anyone from around the world, as well as like people on the team, it's helped me like focus on what I want to do and where I want to go next, and the people around me help me learn like different things I never thought about.
That's nice. Do you feel like they pushed you like in a more like oriented direction at all? Or like, do you feel like you think about yourself more and like as it relates to Oberlin too?
They definitely pushed me more for academic success here.
Mhm.
So for that, I'm like the team has like an academic top 20 board,
Mhm.
and being on that is really like it makes me feel accomplished, but also like in the classroom, like I'll take a grade and like I'll be like, oh, I gotta do better because the people next to me like they did better. So it's like competing kind of.
Interesting. I like that perspective on it too. Like that reminds me of maybe like a little bit too, like the dashboard and stuff. That's awesome. So that was my last question. Is there anything else that like I need to read?
Okay.
Okay, perfect. I can stop recording. Awesome. Thank you.
Imogen, can you go next? And then you're interviewing John, right?
Oh, it's probably interviewing you.
Oh, me?
Yes, I think you're being interviewed. It's her choice.
No, you're good. You're good. You can for a different angle. Hi, my name is Imogen. Thank you so much for agreeing to participate in an interview for Community Voices. I'm excited to talk to you. As much as, yeah, as I think you know, I'm recording this interview so that I can focus on listening to you rather than taking notes. The recording will not be used by anyone but me or shared with the public without your consent. How would you like to be referred to in this interview? Very good. Before we begin, I would like to give you a little overview on what is going to happen. As you may know, we have interviewed many people in Overland to develop content for the Community Voices section of Environmental Dashboard. Our goal is to learn how members of the Overland community are building a more sustainable, just, and resilient community. I am particularly interested in how you interact with the community. I hope that this can be more of a conversation than a formal interview. Does that sound okay? Wonderful. I'm going to ask you a few questions. My first question is, what are your favorite things about Overland being walkable and all the places you enjoy seeing, like the art or the bike path? Yeah, I really enjoy how Oberlin's bikeable, especially because it's very different from where I'm from, Nashville. There aren't a lot of bike lanes, and so it's a very different environment here. And I think it allows you to see the beautiful scenery and then to get to places a lot quicker. And it's obviously better for the environment. And I like biking along the bike trail and just back and forth to classes. I think it's also a nice social activity to go with your friends. There's 4 different parts of Overland. You can't really go walking wise, or it's like less comfortable walking wise. So going to the Arb, for example, is really fun. And what's your favorite thing about like the people in Overland, like how friendly they are? I think everyone's really friendly and everyone has a passion which I like hearing about, and everyone cares about so deeply about something, and it's really inspiring. It makes you care as well. So environmental studies, for instance, like I did not think I was going to be a major when I was first year. But talking to people and realizing that there's so much intersectionality with other majors and other parts of the world, like environmental studies is very tied to the community. I realized that there's so much you can do with it. And I think my favorite part about Overland, with Overland students again, is just how kind everyone is and how everyone wants to share what they've learned with everyone else. It's just really inspiring. And you said that you like how kind everyone in the Overland community is. What kind of did that like help you join like the environmental dashboard thing? Right. So I did research before coming into my first year. So that's kind of how I got involved initially, but I ended up meeting a lot of people on the dashboard team. And they were all kind of had different interests, like computer science, for example. And I liked how we could all come together and form this really amazing team that worked really well together and had kind of the same interest in sustainability and education. And so that definitely helped me get involved and meet new people. Yeah. In terms of like additional like organizations that you want to join, like for environmental stuff, would like what kind of stuff are you thinking of joining? I've been thinking a lot about joining more community-based organizations, like City Fresh, for example, which I know is what your topic is on. But I've been getting interested in urban gardening, for example, and I think that really is a good way to get started, like starting locally, and then I can think about where I want to do that in the future if I want to do that. And so I think part of it's just taking advantage of the resources in the community to build upon your passions and interests and meet new people and really figure out what you want to do and how you want to interact in the community now and then in the community in the future. I think that's all. Thank you. And then Luke, do you want to go?
Yeah. Hello, my name is Luke Rogers. Thanks so much for agreeing to participating in this interview for the Community Voices. I'm excited to talk to you today. As I think you know, I'm recording this interview so that I can focus on listening to you rather than taking notes. This recording will not be used by anyone but me or shared with the public without your consent. How would you like to be referred to during this interview?
You just call me Jen.
Okay, that's good. Before we begin, I would like to give you a little overview about what is going to happen. As you may know, we have interviewed many people in Oberlin to develop content for the Community Voices section of Environment Dashboard. Our goal is to learn how members of the Oberlin community are building a more sustainable, just, and resilient community. I am particularly interested in your outlook on how Oberlin has affected you. I'm hoping that this can be more of a conversation than a formal interview. Does that sound okay?
Sounds awesome.
Wonderful. I'm going to ask you about 4 questions. My first question is going to be, being a first-year member of CFIO, how do you think you'll be able to impact the Oberlin community best?
So CFRO is like not, I don't feel like it's Oberlin organization, but this like, I don't know, I want to say it's like a chapter, but it's like at Oberlin. And like, there are people in a bunch of different ages who are in it. So there are people who are probably like in the 50s that are content team members. And then there are people who are sophomores and like a bunch of people. But like being a first year is really interesting because I kind of feel a little bit like an imposter sometimes because it's like, I don't always feel like the most like equipped to like write content and things like that. But it's a really supportive community and like I feel like just being a part of it and like also kind of being able to bring what I'm learning in class to like when I'm writing, it's been really nice. And like I think it also just gives me more of like an overall knowledge and an outlook on like how I can contribute to like food like innovation and stuff like that.
Now, what drew you to this organization first?
My professor is actually one of the co-chairs of it. So Brett Joseph, him and a lady named Laura, whose last name I do not know, co-founded it, and they kind of use it to like be like linking different institutions and like businesses together to kind of create a more like sustainable like food network. And so I think Oberlin College is a big part of this CFIO. And then my long-term project, I didn't know what I wanted to do. And then I was talking to him in the office hour, and he's like, "Oh, well, you could work on the content team for the CFIO." And I was like, "Oh, well, that sounds great." So that's what I did for my wintertime project. And I was going to meetings before wintertime. I still go to the meetings, and like now I'm just, I guess, a part of the content team. Yeah.
Well, that's awesome. So I know that in your bio, you talked about having past journalism experience. How do you think that's going to help you with interviewing the people in Oberlin and the community as well?
It definitely has just kind of taught me a lot about like so I did the journalism expo at the review, and then I also in high school had to do a lot of interviews for the IB program. And both of those just gave me a lot of like experience kind of like learning how to like properly ask interview questions. And I didn't do this at the end of my interview, but like kind of just asking like, do you have anything else that you want to add, or like is there anyone that you could connect me to? Like that was a really important skill that I learned. And I think that all that journalism experience also just made me a lot more comfortable ask people questions that I would have been if I hadn't done this. Yeah.
So do you think that experience is going to help you with interviews that you're going to conduct with City Prep?
I think definitely, like, I think I'll have less anxiety as I'm in city prep because of that experience. And I also think that, like, I'll just keep questions like that in the back of my mind that maybe otherwise I don't have. I also think, though, that kind of on the note of the CFIO and also the process of documents, so like, they're called application systems. Like, I just learned so much about, like, agriculture, like, difficult methods, CSA, to just every city pressures that, like, that violent journalism experience is going to help me a lot with the questions. I hope.
So now to shift gears a little bit, how alike, if there are any like similarities or different, is the environmental efforts here compared to Annapolis?
So Annapolis, I would say that even though Maryland in general is definitely more into like environmental conservation compared to other states, it's definitely lagging behind. Annapolis, especially though there's the Chesapeake Bay Foundation there, which is like a pretty big environmental organization, and they're definitely more centered on like the bay. So then with like oyster restoration, like we don't really do that here because there are oysters and like dairy. I could be wrong though.
No,
Okay.
lots of bivalves, not oysters.
Okay. So like that's a really big thing here at home versus here. And like I think Oberlin is just like so like progressive in terms of like the speed of like the environmental legislation, and that's just not happening in Maryland in the way that like would probably be best. And we also kind of have to face like difference of like Virginia and like outside states too, and like watershed pollution. So like I think it's like the scope of like what we're trying to do is a lot different though. But I wish that like specifically in Annapolis there were more like Annapolis tailored things. Yeah.
Well, that's all my questions. Thank you for your time.
Awesome, thank you.
Yeah, good job. So now I think we're gonna go into the feedback portion and just go around and say a couple things you learned from each other or you learned about your own interview process. Do you want to start? Or
You're just talking about things that you felt went well and, you know, things you did, other people did, just, you know, you're reflecting on the interviews you just saw.
I thought that both interviews or all three interviews felt a lot like conversations. Especially with Bryn, she was able to go off script and ask more questions to get me more indulged in the conversation that she had asked to get more information out of me. I thought that was really good. I'm not sure.
That's fine.
No, I agree. I think you guys both did a really good job. And like, I think your questions were super centered around the community voices aspect, which like, I feel like I struggled a little bit to remember that. And like, it's just good watching other people do interviews because I feel like I gained so many more like ideas about how I should interact during them. I wish I'd practiced before with like the should ask my questions. I think that would be really helpful. But overall, like, this definitely has made me feel a lot more positive going forward. So.
I like when there's like have like something to attend. Because I don't think I really could do that. And yeah, you guys were like it was fairly natural once we got past these folks. And I think it's important to really listen to your interviewing and also like show them like physically that you're listening by nodding, and you guys did a good job of that. And then you've also did a good job including personal interests and relating that to the community. And yeah, making a conversation also, I saw that and it was very good.
Yeah, I guess, you know, just building on what people said, I think the conversational aspects were really good. I think you need to be super conscious with community voice interviews about, are you developing content that you'll be able to extract quotes from that are going to be meaningful to the larger community? And I feel like on some of your questions, you were getting really good information about the other person, but not necessarily a lot of quotables. You know, and I think you really want to keep that in your head with the questions themselves and the follow-up questions too. Like sometimes I think people were heading in directions where maybe a follow-up question could have gotten a nice little tidbit, but yeah, I would just really think hard about like, how am I directing this conversation in a way that's going to get like a nice little tidbit that's about the larger community and about connection with the larger community. So that would be my big feedback on that. But I think you guys did a good job, and like the conversational aspect was great for that. Yes.
I kind of say the same thing, like the hunting, for example. I think you like kept doing follow-ups to get more, but then you moved on like right when you realized like it wasn't really going necessarily in the community direction. So that was good, like realizing that.
Yeah. Cool.
Okay.
All right. I didn't know you were from Annapolis. I love that sushi place in Annapolis. Yes, love that place. Totally. No, I did my PhD at University of Maryland. I was in Cambridge, Maryland. So.
Wow, my best friend is around actually here like today to visit me.
Oh, far out. Far out. Yeah, I spent 10 years in Maryland.
That's like where the Naval Academy is, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
No, but whenever I drive to DC, I try to make a detour to have dinner at Haas.
That's so funny. I think my roommate there, she's from LA, and I was like, this is the best sushi.
Oh, it's good. It's good.
And I was like, oh my goodness. So good.
Yep. You guys have a great rest of your day.
They really just grow vegetables. If you're ever like,
Yeah, alas, I haven't been there in years, but it was like a regular
yeah,
location for me.
it's so good.
Yeah, take care.
Bye.
You too.
Come on, you guys.
No, I had to commute to DC from Annapolis. It took like an hour every morning. It was a lot.
Really? You commuted?
When I was like my cousins live in Annapolis.
Well, we tend to too. What's our deal here?
Oh, maybe we're not early.
Oh, okay. Right. You guys are a little early. That's great. Okay, come on in. That's good. It gives you a chance to get settled, get the script out, get your questions out. Welcome.
So next thing we have open the interview introduction page, talking about like where it has like any consent for recording.
It's on page 13 of the
community-based
of the
projects.
community-based projects document.
What are your names?
My name is Hunter. Welcome.
I'm Michelle.
Michelle, Hunter and Michelle. Are you enjoying this rainy day?
No, not as much as some of the other days.
Not as much as the sunny day yesterday. Yesterday was something.
Was beautiful. It's been beautiful for like almost a week.
Yeah, it's been nothing to complain about.
Is it cold rain today or just like rain?
I didn't, that's nice. I mean, it's 58 when I rode in. Come on in.
You can hear like every raindrop.
I know this place totally amplifies the rain in here. Yeah. Isn't it? Yeah, you get the real raindrop effect in here. Oh, we lost Martin. We had him, but we lost him. Pamela, you want to get yourself all set, get your computer out, get the script in front of you, get your questions in front of you, just get yourself all set to go on. I assume everyone has their phone out, ready to record. Wait until Martin gets back to actually start here. Oops.
Just a question. Are you supposed to ask the bibliographic question before the icebreaker, or can you ask the icebreaker?
You mean about their background?
Yeah,
For
yeah.
this one, you don't need to ask that question. For the other ones, you do, but for this one, not. So good question, but that's not one to ask today.
Okay.
So you should go straight into once you've asked for double checked on the reporting and stuff. You should go into your own questions that you developed for your interviewee. Where the hell did Martin go? Okay, all right.
So just a little overview of what we're gonna do. So we're going to interview each other in the assigned pairs and then watch each other be interviewed. And then at the very end, we're going to go over like what went well, what could have been better, just some general feedback. And you should have time to ask 2 to 3 questions around 5 minutes each. And the goal is to get used to the interview process, get to know your peers and watch each other and prepare to interview a member of the community. And you should all use your phones to record and then jump on Zoom.
I got a backup that I'll post in case for some reason your phone doesn't work, but
And make sure to follow the interview script as I said earlier. And we're going to go alphabetically. So Hunter can go first.
Hello, my name is Hunter. Thank you so much for agreeing to participate in an interview for Community Voices. I'm very excited to talk to you.
As I think you know, I'm recording this interview so that I can focus on listening to you rather than taking notes. The recording will not be used by anyone but me or shared with the public without your consent. How would you like me to refer you throughout this interview? No? Okay. Before we begin, Camilla, I would like to give you a little overview about what is going to happen. As you may know, we have interviewed many people in Oberlin to develop content for the Community Voices section of Environmental Dashboard. Our goal is to learn how members of Oberlin community are building a more sustainable, just, and resilient community. I'm particularly interested in resilience. I'm hoping that this can be more of a conversation than a formal interview. Does that sound okay? Wonderful. I'm going to ask you 3 questions. The term resilience is often used to describe the ability of individuals, organizations, and even whole communities to bounce back and exemplify the best of what they're capable of in response to stress. What makes Oberlin a strong, resilient community?
Well, I think Oberlin is really resilient because there's so many new people who come and choose to be here. And I think everyone has their own individual challenges, personal challenges, and also environmental challenges and storylines. And so I think that it's resilient anywhere where people come together and are able to share their stories and support each other.
Wonderful. Do you see lessons in how Oberlin is responding to current situations that might be useful as we think about responding to issues such as climate change?
Well, I appreciate how Professor Peterson has been involved, it sounds like, in actions towards sustainability. And that gives me hope because I think professors serve as teachers, but also as touchstones between students and the administration of the college. And that I think is really important to hear different voices. I think giving money to sustainable projects that students want to do is really important, and to have it really driven by people who are making an investment by coming here in sustainability and in their futures through like tuition, basically. Yeah.
Personally, what are some ways you stay connected with the community? What is something you are seeing the community do to facilitate connections and conversations?
I think there's just like a lot of events on campus where you can sort of connect, or even just places. I feel like we as students really utilize a lot of the spaces on campus really well. Like there's always people in there. And I think just connecting wise, there's, I don't know, like just being open and open to meeting new people and going to things that like maybe outside of one's comfort zone. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much. What other?
And Camilla.
Did I repeat the whole intro again?
Yep.
Hello, my name is Noah. Thank you so much for participating in the interview for Community Voices. I'm excited to talk to you. As I think you know, I'm recording this interview so that I can focus on listening to you rather than taking notes. The recording will not be used by anyone but me or shared with the public without your consent. How would you like to be referred to during this interview?
Just something.
Okay. Before we begin, I would like to give you a little overview about what it's about. As many of you know, we have interviewed many people to develop content for the Community Voices section of Environmental Dashboard. Our goal is to learn how members of the Oberlin community are building a more sustainable, just, and resilient community. I'm particularly interested in knowing your perspective, and I'm hoping that it can be a conversation more than a formal interview. Does that sound okay?
Yes.
Okay. Wonderful. I'm going to ask you 3 questions. So, what do you think the role of students here in terms of making the school more sustainable?
I think Oberlin as a student body has a lot of really intelligent, people that can work together and, create conversation about sustainability efforts and environmental efforts. So, the fact that those students are so willing to, create programs, and work together and create these kind of conversations is really important, for improving Oberlin's sustainability.
Okay, so what actions towards sustainability are most meaningful to you that the college has done?
So a lot of like the carbon like reduction and reducing our carbon footprint, by removing pipes and, when we went out to the solar field, seeing all the different things that Overland kind of does to reduce its carbon footprint, are kind of really important things, especially with the fact that, carbon has on climate change. So just reducing our footprint and, taking one small step at a time is an important way to kind of.
And lastly, how do you interact and connect with nature in the community?
Well, I personally like to go for walks around the campus. It's beautiful. I like going out to the Arb. I think there's some really cool stuff over there by the pond, and just walking around, just feeling connected and kind of knowing like your environment, where you're at, kind of important thing for me personally. So I'd like to go on things like such the bike rides and down the trails, but some things I'm doing right now are just walking around, going to the Arb, kind of scoping out good for me. So,
Thank you so much.
Isabel, and then Martin.
Yeah.
Hello, my name is Marshall. Thank you so much for agreeing to participate in an interview with Community Voices. I'm excited to talk to you. As I think you know, I am recording this interview so that I can focus on listening to you rather than taking notes. The recording will not be used by anyone but me or shared with the public without your consent. How would you like to be referred to during this interview? Michelle. Michelle. Welcome. Before we begin, Michelle, I would like to give you a little overview about what is going to happen. As you may know, we have interviewed many people in Oberlin to develop content for the Community Voices section of Environmental Dashboard. Our goal is to learn how members of the community are building a more sustainable, just, and resilient community. I'm particularly interested in the relationship between members of this community and specifically how they engage with or think about the issues of sustainability. I'm hoping that this can be more of a conversation than a formal interview. Does that sound okay?
Yeah.
Cool. Wonderful. I'm going to ask you 3 questions. My first question is, what was your sense of the sustainable practices in the community from your hometown in India, and how might it compare to Oberlin?
Yeah. So back in India, I studied in like a boarding school for like 8 to 9 years. So I spent like majority of my time in a boarding school. And there, like we learned how to like work with the environment, work with people who work with the environment. We learned like sustainable practices, like composting, like gardening, farming, little bit of farming. So there's a lot of diversity which we learn a lot of stuff. And I think it's really helpful that I think take it to Oberlin and work and learn more.
Did you see it as kind of applying like what you've learned and have opportunities to do
Yeah,
that?
absolutely. Yeah.
Cool. My next question for you is, what positive role do you think young people play in leading and changing Oberlin to make the community more good? And you can kind of talk about maybe how you think that your experiences might play into that, or just more generally.
Okay, yeah. So young people nowadays are like more informed, more knowledgeable about issues like climate change and how we can affect sustainable practices like sustainability. So back in India, back in high school, I went around to a village for like 10 days with my like classmates, and there we like stayed in the wild. We used like water considerably than what we used in stores. We worked with indigenous people. We worked with villages. We built houses for them. So I think what young people can do is a lot, and there's a lot of potential we can do that we could achieve, and we can change the world.
Cool. And do you see like any, like just from your time in Oberlin so far, like what are the avenues in Oberlin that you see making a change? It would be like just educating yourself through this class, or maybe bigger things than being an extra project, just anything that you were good.
Yeah. So what I think is like the classes are very like they expose you to these kind of issues. They help you like learn how to solve problems And I've seen a lot of people take initiative, a lot of people create like group movement. And I've seen especially the Ukraine movement here and it's really big strong and it's really nice. to see.
That's everything I have. Thank you.
Yeah.
That's really nice. Michelle, do you want to go next?
Yes.
Okay.
Hello, my name is Vishal. Thank you for agreeing to participate in this interview for Community Voice. I'm excited to talk to you. As I think you know, I'm recording this interview so that I can focus on listening to you rather than taking notes. The recording will not be used anyone but me or shared with the public without your consent. How would you like to be referred during this interview?
Mark.
Thanks, Mark. Before we begin, I would like to give you a little overview about what's going to happen. As you may know, we have introduced many people in Oberlin to develop content for community voices section of environmental dashboard. Our goal is to learn how members of the Oberlin communities are building a more sustainable, just and resilient community. I'm particularly interested in how the members of this community interact with their environment. I'm hoping that this can be more of a conversation than a formal interview. I'm okay?
Yeah.
Cool. I'm gonna ask you 3 questions. How do you think you can integrate entrepreneurship and environmental science during a time when things environmental ethics are lost?
A really good question. I think it's important to, I'm not gonna say like get exposed to, or be like a victim of like environmental disasters or anything. But I think for a lot of people, it's not really real until it affects your community. And so to be not just like, make decisions that are gonna improve, within your community, the level of sustainability, but actually be an entrepreneur. I think that's like even more demanding, and maybe you can kind of be engaging in your community without necessarily like having been exposed to it or understand it to its fullest extent, and you kind of just know that it would be helpful and you care about your community, want to do something about it. But I think to actually develop like a, some kind of project or like a big, bigger gesture to try to improve the community and the sustainability of it, that might require, getting exposed to the issues and being able to engage with them and learn what they really are, as opposed to just knowing that they're important and you want to do something about it. So that's what I would say about that.
Nice. How has your environmental function changed, if at all, from back home to now?
That's a really good question. I'm not really sure how I thought about it before, but I know ever since I've come to Oberlin, I also took a class the first year summer last semester that was called Anthropocene and engaged with kind of the bigger like philosophical questions of like what are human beings on this planet and what is the relationship, and like the changes that we've created, can those be thought of as part of the evolutionary path of humans and kind of valid as like the the path of just the environment in the world, or is it unnatural? Like what does it mean to be unnatural? So that question for me is a really big one, and I think the combination of that and this class and kind of gearing it more towards like the community and thinking about how like a kind of a more social lens, like the mindset around it and kind of the things that we all get kind of used to just based on the mindset in our society. The combination of those two things are just really, I think, equipping me well to actually start to learn kind of the more specialized things, start to learn the techniques and the maybe start to think about like how I want to, what industry or what, what place I want to end up in to actually make a difference. So those big questions have really been great for me since I've come to Oberlin, and they're really good questions. So I'm thinking about.
So now that you like learned this stuff, how do you like look back on how you have been before and how life is doing in the area?
Yeah, I mean, New York is you know, like projections say that New York is kind of in a really privileged spot, geographically, and it's gonna be affected kind of the least. Like New York is like one of the luckiest areas in the United States, as far as the changes. And I experienced some, changes, and like some summers were really hot and some winters didn't get snow, and it was just a little different. But honestly, I think I took a lot of it for granted, and that's kind of like, I guess what I was talking about before with, you have to really, I think, to really understand the, you know, the volume of these issues. It kind of just, it kind of requires more than just knowing that it's an issue that matters, and want to do something about it. So maybe the classes that I'm gonna take, I haven't been exposed to like an extreme, that many extreme situations or consequences of climate change, but the classes have informed me on kind of thinking about it the right way. So I think since coming from New York, like those classes have just given me the right ideas about, what is it that we're really dealing with, and not necessarily, having some disaster happen, but just being able to think about the right things.
Thank you. Thank you for that.
Great, very good, and I enjoyed hearing all of these speak to each other. So we're gonna go to the feedback section, and just go around and just say something that you learned or observed through watching someone else, or you learned about yourself, as an interviewer.
I guess I can start. I feel like I really like how Martin's questions were like really geared towards Michelle. And I feel like I could make my questions more geared to my interviewee the way that Martin did. So something that I learned in this process is just make my questions more personable in my interview.
Great.
Yeah, I feel the same way. It could be a bit more personal, and also I think that's kind of how you get interesting things. Okay, is by connecting with someone and their story, and yeah, that's kind of my impression. I also think one thing that's important is the eye contact. This sort of being present in the body language. Yeah.
This is my first time, like, I'm getting a formal interview.
Mhm.
I say, yeah, I think I'm allowed. I have to ask questions.
I think for me, I don't really know how to describe it, but it's just kind of an experience thing. Like, I'm just kind of glad that I got to do a first stab at it, and I see like how I could have made my questions a little bit more kind of just specific and more oriented towards what I'm actually curious about, rather than just kind of general questions that the person can answer anyway. So I just think it's an experience thing.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's like a practice thing, just practicing the introduction part and then really just listening to other people. And I think Martin did a really good job. He's been very comfortable in both roles and was good at providing examples and like repeating back what you all said was really helpful. So I think a large part of it is making your interview feel very comfortable right when they get in and just like talking to them, getting to know them.
Yeah, I really think the insights the four of you just shared are absolutely right on. Thinking about really targeting your questions, as you guys said. I mean, you got some biographical information on everyone, just making sure you're really thinking about them. But I think another comment that was made, thinking about the end product. At the end of the day, you're going to try to extract little quotes from these that are, so thinking about like, am I getting like a good clip? Because I think in many cases, I'll use Martin as an example. You said some amazing stuff. Most of it was pretty long, and I think that and what you said was all great. It's just as an interviewer, I would have been trying to nail you down with follow-up questions that tried to get you to just condense a little some of what you were saying into maybe the follow-up questions are also really key, and that's part of the listening thing that you guys were talking about. The more you can just be relaxed, and again, this is your first time doing this, so naturally it's going to be like stressful. You're very self-conscious and all that. It's partly why we're doing it in this sort of like fairly relaxed context here. Is like if you can really show up really prepped, really good questions, so that you can just sit there, make the eye contact you're talking about, Noah, and just really listen to people and then just be ready when they say something that's cool with like a follow-up question, which is gonna, you know, hopefully get them to say something in a condensed little tidbit. But I thought you guys, I thought the lessons you extracted about were exactly what's in my notes. I was taking lots of notes. So I don't need to read my notes because you guys got everything that I would have said, you know, in this. But yeah, good stuff.
We're done early, so.
Yeah, you guys have any more questions?
What's the, I mean, these are kind of shorter, so I'm assuming the other ones will be longer, right?
Yeah, they will be longer. So I think, again, prepping for those, you guys are interviewing people in power, so really understanding the organization, what the organization is doing, what these people have gotten, so that you're in a position to, you know, you'll have a little bit of biographical information on these folks. I think power's a little different because you're having to follow up and get stuff, but we should try to get as much as we can from Greg so that we can make sure that these guys have as much as they can about these individuals. Many of the people who've gotten power services are, and I don't know that this is the case for everyone in your camp, but many of them are sort of elderly people. You know, so there are people who've been around in Oberlin a long time. Most people who are getting power services are people who've been around for a while. So you can interview them not just on, you know, their experiences with power, which we definitely want to feature. I mean, the goal of your group really is to promote, like any other community, there's a lot of stuff going on here that you think everyone would know about, but they don't know about. So your main goal is to have people say really cool stuff about power that someone else will see on the screen and say, oh, I should do that. That's like a service I didn't know that exists. Wow. You know, so-and-so got this. I thought it was for someone else. It looks like it's for people like me. You know what I mean? So just going into your interview, having thought about like the big goals, we want people to say really nice things about power that are going to make other people want their services. But also you've got these people in the community who are probably have been here a long time and know a lot of things about the community. So get the focus on power, but be prepped to just take the conversation in other directions because you've got people who know a lot about this community. So, you know, take advantage of that. I mean, you know, like from like a teacher perspective in this class, this is like a phenomenal opportunity for you to get to know people in Oberlin who you'd never get to know. So do take advantage of that. You know, a lot of these people are African Americans too. They've got a different lived experience in Oberlin, and you know, there's a lot of wealth of knowledge in that experience. So just be ready to kind of like, you know, slurp up what you can from you know, their insights and knowledge about this community, you know. But nice job, guys. Enjoy the rest of your rainy day. And this is Camilla, right? It's not Kamala. Camilla, okay. I want to get the accent right on this. Because some people are Kamala.
Yeah, some people.
Not you, though. Have fun. See if I can see you later. Thanks, Martin. Cool. Yeah, it's funny, those first two, just like the questions were completely impersonal. I don't know.
I think, you like changed any of them.
No, they were obviously straight up from the thing. He somehow didn't get the, well, does he have any, are they in his thing?
I think you just do some of the thing and just answer.
Right. So I think as you go through these things, man, flag those when they do that and try to make sure they're.
Yeah, well, this group didn't like commit them until like,
Oh, yeah, right, okay. Yeah, like I said in my email this morning, I think we wanna, and you know, I probably should have made that clear to you. I think we wanna be as proactive as we can be, as like, as soon as an assignment's due, check stuff out. And if they haven't done it, poke them on it. But if they have done it and they're a little bit off kilter, because especially for these, this is like new and different from anything they've ever done before. So I don't think it's so much about like them being slackers as them just sort of like, there's a lot of complication in the assignment. They don't know what's going on. You know, and I think we want to just sort of like try to get them on task, you know. Yeah, I think for most of them, it's not about slackerdom. It's about they just somehow are confused. And the sooner we get them funny. Hello, welcome.
Rosalie, yeah. What do you think so far?
Good, so what?
I know, so-
I think you have like a dyed hair in the photo that you submitted to Oberlin College. So I have that. Is that true? Yeah. Yeah, right. So, like, that's one of the photos I'm using to learn people. And it's like, yeah, you don't look like that actually.
No, there's like a little bit of things left. It's funny, but for the most part, it's back to blonde.
Where are you from, Rosalie?
Connecticut?
Oh, Connecticut, okay. Because there's some Colemans in Oberlin, but you're not one of them.
No.
We're in Connecticut.
New Haven.
Oh, I spent a couple of years in New Haven. I lived on Cozy Beach. I was actually mugged at gunpoint the day I moved into New Haven.
Really?
Yeah, this very, very like burnished image in my brain of this large revolver stuck straight into my chest, and feeling to myself at that moment, as I handed over my money, this is the best $40 I've ever spent. It was a good welcome. What? I felt like the sense of calm come over me, in which I understood that everything in my body needed to communicate to this individual that I saw him as being in complete control, and I was not going to do anything that was going to take away that thought that he had complete control, because I just had this sense that my life is very dependent on him having the understanding that he is completely in control, and I'm going to do exactly what he tells me to do. Well, it's a small bit of my life. It's not something I think about every day, but whenever I think of New Haven, I went to Yale School of Forestry. So. All right, welcome, folks. Good to see you.
Okay, so just a small overview. So you're gonna interview each other in the assigned pairs, and then we're gonna watch. And at the very end, we're gonna have feedback and time to reflect on your experience and just how you felt well, what you improved upon. So make sure you have the interview script out with like the intro part about like getting consent for recording, and that should be in the syllabus under projects, and then on page 13 of that document. And you should have time to ask around 2 to 3 questions, around 5 minutes each. And then the goal in general is just to get used to the interview process, get comfortable, get to know your peers a little bit, and then watch each other interview, get some tips, and then prepare in general just to interview the member of the community in the future.
Yeah, so you guys can relax into this. We're all going to be really friendly to each other. Just try to really listen and pay attention to not just your own interview, but other people's interviews, so we can all learn from each other.
And then we're gonna go in alphabetical order. So there you go. And then also make sure you're recording on your phone. John has you in front of
I will have a backup, but yeah, I mean, we're trying to practice everything you're going to do in a normal interview, and there will be no backup. So. Yep, you start with that, and then you'll go into your questions that you've developed.
Hello, my name is Ellie. Thank you so much for agreeing to participate in the interview for Community Voices. I'm excited to talk to you. As I think you know, I'm recording this interview so that I can focus on listening to you rather than taking notes. The recording will not be used by anyone but me or shared with the public without your consent. How would you like to be referred to during this interview? You can call me Rosalie. Before we begin, I would like to give you a little overview about what's going to happen. As you may know, we've interviewed many people in open
and develop content for the community voices section of environmental dashboard. Our goal is to learn how members of the Overland community are building a more sustainable, just, and resilient community. I'm particularly interested in your experience with, like, working with children and your background with environmental studies. I'm hoping that this will be more of a conversation and an interview. Is that okay? Wonderful. I'm going to ask you wonderful questions. So, yeah, ready? Cool. My first question is, do you think that Overland has done a better job of involving community in environmental issues than that of your previous community?
Definitely. I thought like without the college would be like a pretty similar size. And so without the college, there's like a lot less. I guess like community outreach and like kind of this Overland special and having this sort of unifying college in the town. So yeah, it's like definitely much further at the green energy and just kind of getting the community like involved and on board with individual action on the local level, but also like spreading it out into a wider region. Yeah, so there's like a lot of kind of smaller initiatives in our town. And there's been like a lot of work like trying to get people to do green energy, but there hasn't been like this big like push for it. So I know a lot of people that do like there's a lot of solar energy on this, and there's also a lot of like pollinator gardens, and I know a lot of people that have like bees, and so there's a lot of smaller stuff.
So do you think that the community has like had a very large impact on Overland efforts of environmental sustainability?
Yeah, probably. I think that, and there's a lot of connection between the community and like the college, so, and from what I understand of it at least, so I think that like, that community that is communication is really important, and, without it.
So, on your profile, you talk about working with like programs and just the community in general. And that's something you get
Yeah.
passionate about. Do you think that minoring in environmental studies here and keeping up with the community is something you want to have in your future career?
Yeah, definitely. I'm not from the like, towards the environmental studies program. It definitely seems to be one of like the major, the most community involvement. So yeah, that's probably one of the main factors. I don't have like, a lot of background in environmental studies like in general. But I know a lot of like looking through the course catalog and stuff, a lot of the classes you invest in, and like the outreach is I think a really big thing for me. So, yeah.
How long is it in here?
You can, if you've got another question, you can roll. It's okay. We're doing okay.
So I asked you a little bit about like your previous community and how that might be different from Overland. So I'm wondering if the way you were raised might affect your views on the environment you say our world today. If there's anything specific or not.
Yeah, again, with my community, like having a lot of environmental courses, my parents also were like super, I don't know, they're like not super concerned about the environmental crisis or anything. So it definitely wasn't like a very big part of my childhood, but I grew up with like chickens and rabbits. So, and I also like spent a lot of time on a local farm, so I sort of like found it, like found environmental stuff through that. But yeah, so it was more like a community sort of, It's really cool. Thank you so much.
Great.
Hello, my name is Eric. Thank you so much for agreeing to participate in an interview for Community Voices. I'm excited to talk to you. As I think you know, I'm recording this interview so that I can focus on listening to you rather than taking notes. The recording will not be used by anyone but me or shared with the public without your consent. How would you like to be referred to during this interview?
Just Miles, it's fine.
Before we begin, I would like to give you a little overview about what is going to happen. As you may know, we have interviewed many people in Oberlin to develop content for the Community Voices section of the Environmental Dashboard. Our goal is to learn how members of the Oberlin community are building a more sustainable, just, and resilient community. I'm particularly interested in your future endeavors and how environmental awareness has changed since moving to Oberlin. I'm hoping that this can be more of a conversation than a formal interview. Does that sound okay?
Yeah, I'm fine.
Wonderful. I'm going to ask you 3 questions just about general environmental stuff. So, do you have any plans to incorporate your computer science major into the environmental scene, or do you have any ideas as to what can be applicable from computer science into environmental awareness?
As of right now, no, I don't have any plans of incorporating computer science into the environment. Although I do think that you could put in some sort of program and methods to sort of honestly, I know, so I've never really thought about incorporating environment and computer science together. I've only thought about the technological aspect of it.
Since moving to Oberlin, has there been a shift, or is there a notable shift in the environmental awareness here and in Fort Lauderdale?
Oh yeah, this Fort Lauderdale is a huge city. You don't really see much environmental awareness there. It's a lot of just industrialization. It's a huge urban society, and then here it's more suburban. It's a lot more wildlife, a lot more green here. Fort Lauderdale, there's a lot of growth, a lot of people, a lot of cars. So I think there's a huge change between the two.
And lastly, how do you plan on being more involved with the environmental computer community as that is one of your desired experiences?
So yeah, coming from like a really big industrialized city, I think it's really nice being able to just be like, it's sort of refreshing being in a nice open environment like here, and going to somewhere like the Everglades in Florida. I really think it's really important to preserve natural wildlife like that. And I really hope to be a help with that.
All right, nice. That's it. Thank you.
Oh, yeah. Hello, my name is Miles Fell. Thank you so much for agreeing to participate in the interview for Community Voices. I'm excited to talk to you. As I think you know, I'm recording this interview so that I can focus on listening to you rather than taking notes. The recording will not be used by anyone but me or shared with the public without your consent. I would like to be referred to during this interview.
Eric is fine.
Before we begin, I would like to give you a little overview about what's going to happen. As you may know, we have interviewed many people in Oberlin to develop content for the Community Voices section of Environmental Dashboard. Our goal is to learn how members of the Oberlin community are building a more sustainable, just, and resilient community. I am particularly interested in your view of the views. I'm hoping this to be more of a conversation than a formal interview session, okay?
Yeah.
Wonderful. I'm going to ask you 3 questions. So my first question is, how has moving from California, a notably urban state, to Oberlin, a less populated city, affected your relationship with the environment?
Well, it's definitely given me a different level of awareness. The light signs and all the halls tell me how much water, or tell me about the water usage and the electricity usage. Whereas at home, I'd always take it for granted and I would just leave my light on whenever I wanted to and my fan would be running 24/7 and now I'm more aware of that, so.
Nice. Question number two, are your parents involved in Environment Society? And then if so, how?
Yeah, so my dad is an environmental science professor at Stanford. He focuses in soil sciences. And it's definitely, it's played a big role in my childhood, so.
That's interesting. How has living in barrels affected your standpoint of viewing the environment? Do you think any changes to be made to further improve the sustainability of the dormitory / school?
This is a pretty easy question to me. Barrows has definitely adjusted my view on different initiatives that need to be taken. Because the light system, while it's useful, it definitely doesn't convey enough information about environmental sustainability. Because people are in there taking showers for like 30-40 minutes. And every time I flush the toilet or urinal, it's going on for multiple minutes, which is, I mean, it's just wasteful at that point. So there are a number of changes that can be made to different dorms as well as barrows. So, yeah.
Well, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Good job, everyone. I think we're now gonna move towards the feedback portion.
Wait, Rosalie hasn't interviewed yet.
Hello, my name is Rosalie. Thank you so much for agreeing to participate and interview for Community Voices. I'm very excited to talk to you. As I think you know, I'm recording this interview so that I can focus on listening to you rather than taking notes. And this recording will not be used by anyone or shared in public if I would be sent. I'll use you for it. Okay. And before we begin, I'd like to give you a little overview of the kind of work. As you know, we've interviewed many people in Oberlin to develop content for the Community Voices section of the environmental dashboard. It's our goal to learn how members of the Oberlin community are building a more sustainable stuff and in the community. I'm particularly interested in the first year, as shaped how you feel about the Oberlin environmental community. And I'm hoping that this can be more of a conversation than an interview. Okay. So I'm gonna ask you about like 4 or 5 questions. So first, you mentioned in your notes that you're here spending a lot of time with what natural space and everyone's
Well, I'm usually in North Carolina, Tappan Square. We play like a lot outside and the weather's nice and I like to hang out in Tappan and really peaceful. I like just being outside and being in the nice weather. It's just a great college experience. And like Oberlin has a lot of great places to exist outside.
So by living in Con Hall, college brings ability to report that in your first year experience. Do you feel that in general, like your students living in Con or comfortable with flood? And in what ways do you see this happening?
I wish that I could say that Con has been more sustainable, like overall in comparison to like being out of dorms. Unfortunately, I don't think that's necessarily the case. I know like there are definitely people who try to like limit their like electricity and water use and take shorter showers, but I think that we all can work together a little bit harder to uphold our budget sustainability, especially those living in Con, but also everywhere on campus. Our environmental light on my floor was green for a really long time and now it's red, so that is unfortunate. Yeah.
And in what ways do you like it? Up with that flag, would be doing any?
Yeah, in my application essay, I talked about using, menstrual products that are reusable. So that's kind of like one of the bigger things that I've noticed, like, has changed how much waste I produce. But I also try to take shorter showers. There's a lot of like reminders in Khan that people just encourages people to like turn off the lights, take shorter showers when you're I guess just overall consumption resources.
Cool. And you also mentioned in your notes that you plan on making your computer science, do you have any like prior experiences that you like combined your interests as you like development with environmental studies?
I think that computer science is such a broad field that you can almost apply it to anything. I think there's so many ways that we can apply like data analysis and like I guess lots of different topics involving computer science to help create a more sustainable world. I think that technology has come so far that we might as well use it to, I guess, like analyze data and keep track of things that will help create a more sustainable environment.
Do you have any like ideas on how computer science can be used for like community engagement stuff in environmental?
Yeah, I think right now the community dashboard is kind of like, I guess not really web development, but it's definitely utilizing technology to, I guess, engage the community and spread the word for environmental sustainability. And I think that technology, web development, and computer science in general has a really big potential to engage people all over the world.
Yeah, definitely. Lastly, after the heavy like doing like department and community sustainability efforts, or like are there any specific things that you'd like to see implemented?
I definitely think that the athletic department as a whole can do better to practice sustainable efforts. I know that as a swimmer, I use a lot of water, like every time I get out of the pool, I go shower and it's a lot of water, but I think that the athletic department could address to athletes specifically their water usage and their electricity usage because I know a lot of people get done with practice and then they're like, oh, I'm gonna go stand in the shower for 30 minutes. But yeah, I definitely think that it could be better. I know there's definitely people that are very conscious about their water usage, but we have a lot of
Now we're gonna move. So we just go in a circle and just say like what you want to see someone else or interview process. Or it could be better or.
I think I can construct my questions better. Like I talked about, incorporating computer science, but I could have phrased that differently. It doesn't even have to be specifically about his usage of computer science. It could have been just in general. So that's something I think I should work on. So.
It's great.
I think I could construct my responses better. Was not really prepared for some of the questions. I wasn't really doing too well thinking on my feet on stuff like that. So I think maybe just coming in more would be a lot better for me.
I think that the way I constructed my questions are kind of, I guess, overlapping. Like I asked you to talk about the same thing pretty much over and over again. I think I could have had more like broad of an approach. I think your questions are really good.
Yeah, I was like had a harder time with like the actual answering the question.
That's definitely, I've like wrote a few like possible like extra prompts. That were like potential follow-ups which is helpful, so I think I definitely do more of that.
I'm just very comfortable doing that and just making your community feel very comfortable, so you can get questions. And I think Nancy did these follow-ups, and I think you had a couple, for each question you had. And then I think there's potential for that. Asking more questions if, like noticing like while you're interviewing, like, oh, I could ask like a broader question about computer science, for example. Like, you should be kind of prepared to adjust your question, as in.
Yeah, I think you guys have just shared some good insights. You know, doing these things makes a lot of things clear. And so hopefully having done this, it's like, it really puts you in a position for your next interview to have thought about these things. There's some subtle things I noticed that I thought were really good. Both of you guys in your interview modified the intro script a little, just tweaked it a little bit to make it a little bit more directed towards the other person. And I think that even from the beginning, set it off that, you know, I'm really trying to learn about you. Because of course that's, you know, that's the hard thing in the first interview. You're really nervous about what you're doing. It's just hard. You're just too conscious of everything you're doing. But I think at the end of the day, it's really about listening, and those little things which are indicating I'm listening, like, you know, just including something about this is what I want to learn about you from this interview. And I've already done some research and I know something about you, you know, and I think all of you actually did a nice job of making sure that your questions were targeted towards what you learned about each other. But one thing I would say is you also really want to focus on the product coming out of this and the target audience for the product, because you want to be soliciting content responses that are going to be meaningful to the, not just Oberlin students, but to the larger Oberlin community. So thinking about your questions, like asking something personal, maybe about Oberlin or their hometown, that's all great because it could be a good icebreaker. You know, that could really open things up. But turning things around a lot with the follow-up questions to just be thinking about, I want this person to say something that's going to talk about their experience in the larger community that would make sense to like share on screens, you know, just like, and it's hard to have all those things in your head at the same time, especially when you're doing this for the first time. But, you know, going into your next interviews, really thinking about, you know, am I asking them the questions to begin with that are going to get them talking about their experience with the community? And when they respond, am I prepped with a follow-up question that's gonna sort of send them back towards that? So it's a lot to think about, and I think you guys did a good job as a kind of initial shot at this. Yeah.
Thank you all for coming.
Yeah. Have a great rest of your rainy day. Actually, maybe it's like slightly not raining right now.
Look at college. My sister applied there and she got her decision today, but I'm making her wait for me. So I can.
Oh, far out. Yeah, these are the days when kids are hearing about getting into colleges for next year.
Yeah.
Yeah. What are your parents doing?